Okay, guys, welcome to Saptarishis Astrology, another session with, as I would like to say, Dr. Dennis Harness. So, people know that Dennis has written one of the most beautiful books on nakshatras. I think it is published now by Motilal Banarsi Das.
It has been it's picked up, but it's Lotus Press is the main publisher of it in Wisconsin.
So, I run a bookshop, and when people ask for nakshatra books, I know how many books sell, how many of your books sell. So I know that you are quite in demand. You know, your book is quite in demand. So when I read your book, I found it so easy to read, meticulous with the examples and the traits of the nakshatras that are not found elsewhere. So from where did you learn nakshatras? And curious question.
Yeah. It was really through the writings of Bipin Bihari that really inspired me fully to embrace the nakshatras. Actually, I should say before that, what really got me into the nakshatras was love. I had gone through a divorce, as we mentioned, and I met a woman named Jackie Holler, who was a student of a man named Swami Hariharananda, who is a direct disciple of Sri Yukteswar, who was initiated by Yogananda and Sri Yukteswar in Kriya Yoga. He did a session with me, which was really amazing in terms of, you'd asked me what one of the best sessions I ever had in my life was by him. But he used the technique of comparing the moon nakshatras for compatibility.
Okay.
And so his student would look at the chart between my first wife and I, who had like 18 points out of the Nakuda point system, which I realize is just one technique to use for compatibility in terms of moon compatibility. But long story short, I would ask her about once a month if I was dating someone new after the divorce, how many points do we have? And so she would tell me. And after a few months of this, 2 or 3 women, she goes, why don't you go buy the book and leave me alone? So the book was called Muhurta, or Electional Astrology by Dr. V.V. Raman. And it has the table in there for the moon compatibility between comparing your moon nakshatra with mates. So that was what got me interested in the nakshatras, was love. Yeah, and I actually went to order the book. I was working at East West Book Shop in Menlo Park, California, a very famous bookstore, metaphysical bookstore, doing sessions there. I started doing sessions in 1988, 30 years ago. And I ordered the book, and the owner of the book, or the manager of the bookstore says, it's going to take you a month or so to get this book because it has to come over from India on sea freight. So it's not, it's going to take a while. Patience is not one of my great virtues. I have Mars on the ascendant, so I'm not a very patient man. So that afternoon, after I did my sessions, I walked by and the manager of the bookstore goes, did you order this book today? And I said, I did this morning. He said, well, the book just arrived, and we cannot get a hold of the person that ordered the book, so would you like it? So I got the book, as they say, is when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, the book will appear, just like that. And so that hooked me in even more. So I had the book, had the little table to work with. But that was, that was actually 1989, So fast forward a little bit, I met Dr. Raman, like I said, in 92. I think I was introduced to Bipin Bihari's book maybe around 93, 94, Myths and Symbols in Vedic Astrology.
One of the most brilliant books.
Amazing book, and he was a theosophist and a philosopher, and I got to spend some time with him, and we actually had him come over to our conference in 96.
Okay.
And we called him Mr. Nakshatra. That was the name we gave Bipin Bihari. He was amazing. So that book was fantastic and inspired me. And so, in answer to your question, he was one of my great teachers. But my greatest teachers were also my clients. So what I would do is I would do their nakshatras primarily for the ascendant, the moon, and the sun. and I would collect the data and just keep working with it. And I found when I would share stuff from his book with my clients, they found it, 80, 90% really accurate, really reflected their process. So I kept studying it and studying his teachings and working with my clients, and then developing the compatibility work that Dr. Raman had shared in his book, Muhurta. So it kind of came through that, and I was collecting also famous people with their rising sign nakshatra, their moon, their sun. So I started collecting all this data and then trying to connect the dots, So that process took me really from 88 to about 98. So 10 years of collecting that work. And I think you had mentioned with C.S. Patel that a lot of his books took him 6 years to write something. So I was collecting that data and starting to work on my book. And it was interesting. I wrote a lot of the book, actually about a third of it, over the course of about 3 or 4 days in a hotel, like with this panoramic view in San Diego. Yeah, because I like to make it romantic, when I'm writing. Otherwise, it could be a little tedious, a little boring to do writing. But anyway, so a lot of the book came through, but I spent, 10 years collecting the data and kind of letting it marinate. And I was teaching a lot on the nakshatras. I think I even taught 92, our very first symposium, like an hour and a half lecture on the nakshatras. And I butchered them, the Sanskrit, terrible. I think I called it Bharani, I called it Bharani, different things. But, I was trying, as hard as I could to get the proper pronunciation of these nakshatras, which was tough. But anyway, I don't know if that answers your question, but it was just like this whole development that happened over a decade of time. And then I think my book was published in 99.
99.
Yeah.
What about Bipin Bihari? Any experiences of his you remember?
Yeah, I remember going to his house in New Delhi.
New Delhi.
And he was so sweet. And I remember his wife and everything. And I just, I dedicated really the book somewhat to him. I mean, to Chakrapani, my guru, and Dr. Raman, but also Bipin Bihari. And I remember one of the things that Bipin said is that he and I shared the same moon nakshatra, Aslesha.
Okay.
Aslesha. So he one of the things that he encouraged me to do was to do more writing, because I wanted to get his blessing of the book, which he was fine blessing the book. And I, footnoted it a lot. Whenever I was using any of his stuff, I'd footnote his book, Missing Symbols, or Vedic Astrology. So one of the things I remember him saying to me, and it was just a few years before he passed away, he said to me, because of your chart, I think it was because Moon Jupiter is in Aslesha but aspected by Saturn. He said, there will be a tendency for you to hold back on your writing because you'll be afraid of what people may think of your writing. And he said, you have to overcome this fear and not worry about it. Just write and do it. Just go ahead and publish it. There will always be critics. There are people that won't like it, this or that. But he said, just stay with it. So he really was like a good, positive father energy again, just encouraging me to write more, So that stuck in my mind very strongly. And then when he came and spoke, to be honest, it wasn't that much more in depth, because his writings are so deep, So he was just more sharing, information really from his books. And but I really encouraged him to get his books published by Lotus Press, which is in Twin Lakes, Wisconsin, who published my book, because they're a really solid publisher. And so I think he wrote, 4 books, something like that. And they were all ended up getting published by Lotus Press because we wanted to protect his writings so that it would have longevity, because we knew how brilliant he was.
The sad state today in India is people do not know about the greatness of Bipin Bihari.
Right.
People have not read his books, and they're so deep, and every paragraph of his book, you can actually think for hours. But anyway, did you ever notice that he had some kind of siddhi or something like that?
Yeah, because again, he just was, you could just tell just how brilliant he was, and he was like a scholar, and again, he had that background in theosophy, Madame Blavatsky, and all that philosophical knowledge, and then, of course, the symbology and the mythology was amazing. So I'm just trying to think. I got to spend some time with him in Seattle, too, with him teaching courses on nakshatras, and then we had him, like I said, at our conference. And then I spent that time with him in '96 on the way to Bangalore for the conference with Dr. Raman. He really respected Dr. Raman and vice versa, of course. And then, I just remember that time in his house, just sitting there on that couch with his wife and, with him, and just that sweetness, and that support that I felt, that somebody that just really, really cared about me. So I felt a lot of love for him. Really good heart.
You've been so lucky. You met all the greats. Spent time with them. They've been so supportive of you.
I always say my wealth is my friends. That's my wealth, because I'm not a wealthy man by any means, in terms of financially. But my wealth is my friends, the people I've met.
The thing was, I know a few things about Bipin Bihari. Okay, some of them are very fascinating. But I wanted to just point out to people is he's one of the first guys to bring mythology into nakshatras in modern writings. Modern writings, at least it's 20 years, 30 years back, And he was a brilliant predictor in many ways. Absolutely brilliant and mystical predictor. But I wanted to quickly ask a question. Did you ever meet R. Santana?
I did not. My God, wait just a minute. I met him just really briefly because he was Jim Kelleher's one of his main teachers. And I think I just got to meet him.
James Brown.
And James Kelleher, too.
James Kelleher
had some connections with him as well.
Okay.
Yeah, and James Braha, you're correct. Both of them. Both of the Jameses had connections. The James gang, as we call them. The outlaws. No, they were great. But I got to meet him just briefly, and it was just a strange experience. It was on a bus. We were riding a bus, and we were in Delhi. I remember it now. And I invited him to come and speak at our next conference. And then he died, so he never was able to make it. But, I'd heard such amazing things about him, But I just got to meet him briefly that one day, because I was just in Delhi and I was meeting with Dr. Charak and K.N. Rao and then with Bepin Bahari, and I was on my way to Bangalore to the conference. And so I just got to meet him briefly. And, I invited him, I remember inviting him to the conference the next year, and then he passed away.
Something about Santana is my Guru C.S. Patel sir. He gave him Chandrakala Nadi, which Santanam translated and published it by Sagar Publications.
Okay.
So the first part of the book was given by my guru to him. And Santanam was so stunned. He said, nobody shares manuscripts. How come you're sharing it? But my Guru Patel sir was like, oh, it needs to be published.
Yeah, really?
He said, I'm not working on translating it. I'm just using some of the shlokas. You might as well publish it. That is because my mentor was common friend. My mentor is from Delhi. Mm-hmm. He was common friend of Santanam and Patel sir.
I see.
30-40 years of friendship. That way. Patel Sahab also gave Bhrigu Nadi to Santanam. Now Bhrigu Nadi is all about Nadi Amsa.
Right.
So one day, Santanam called up, he was in Banaras at that time. Santanam called up my mentor and said, I have been working on Bhrigu Nadi. I have decoded Nadi Amsa, and this is the real astrology. The astrology that we do, it is kind of this. But Nadi Amsa, every 24 seconds the chart is changing, right? He said, I have decoded it. He was so happy. He was extremely happy. And he died. He died instantly. It's like that.
He was young.
Yeah, he died very young.
He was 40 or something.
Yeah. 48 if I remember. 48. I can be wrong. I have his horoscope. I have his horoscope. His horoscope defies the popular belief of astrology that Saturn in the 8th house gives longevity.
Right.
He's got Saturn in the 8th house. I like to collect such kind of horoscopes.
Right.
Anyway, who else fascinated you? Who else?
I was trying a few little notes here as I was kind of thinking about it. I think that actually Harinanda, who was Yogananda's, was initiated by Yogananda, and then Sri Yukteswar was his guru, fascinated me. He did a session for me in '89, and it was a very humbling experience, to be honest. It was, I went to get a session with him, and I think, again, it's the money thing. It was like $125, which seemed like a lot of money, But, whatever. I mean, I thought it was reasonable.
Way back in '89, that's costly.
Whatever. I was just like, so the funny thing about it was I was fine paying that. I didn't have any problem with that because I'd heard such great things about him. But what happened was I go into this room where the session is going to happen. They're having dinner. And there's two couples sitting there, and then he's there, and he says to me, sit down, have a bite with us, and then I'm going to go ahead and do, at that time, my middle name's Michael, so he said, I'm going to do Michael Harness's chart. And I'm thinking, here, I paid this guy $125, and we're not even going to do a proper session. He's going to do it over dinner. So my ego, all my Leo, my control issues, I go, this is not professional. This is not what and even though I had only been practicing since about 6 months, I'd only been doing sessions professionally 6 months, I still thought, this is not professional. I want my private consultation here and record it. But no, he just looked at me and he goes, just sit down, we're going to do Michael's chart. So he started talking to me, and he started talking to me about how, he said, you're going to become a very famous astrologer. You're going to travel all over the world first class, all these things are going to open to you. And so I'm thinking, with all my Leo, I'm going, this is really good, I can handle this, tell me more. I've got an audience, So good, so good. So then he says, at the same time, he said, you have addiction issues. You have a big ego. I'm going to go into all the details, but he was just blasting me, just blasting me in front of these people. And I am just like, oh my God, this is really terrible. And then he yelled at me. I mean, serious, right in front of these people. He says, you are blind. You cannot see. And he came over and he took his thumb and pushed it right into my third eye and twisted it. And he goes, I will help you to see like that. And then the session was over.
That's it.
That was it.
That's it.
That was it.
Just 2 minutes of talking.
And it was so profound.
But did your life change after that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I ran away. I ran as fast as I could. No, actually, the next day he was doing an initiation into Kriya Yoga. And one of my best friends, who was the best man at our wedding, who I've been friends with since 1985, and again, this is in 1989. We're sitting there and he's initiating people, and he says to them, did you see? He was going around and asking people, do you see the white light? Do you hear the cosmic sound? People are going, yes, Baba, yes, Baba. So he gets to me. He goes, do you hear the cosmic sound? And I sometimes do hear it. It's probably tinnitus when they're in the ears, but I can hear something kind of subtle. I said, yes, Baba. He said, do you see the divine light? Well, I didn't see the divine light. But I was so embarrassed. I said, yes, Baba. And he yelled at me. He goes, you lie!
Oh my God. Oh my God. That is embarrassing.
It was so embarrassing. And so then I ran for years. But he was always on my shoulder.
Okay.
Kind of like a father, just trying to get me to, to behave, because again, Sri Yukteswar, his guru, said the first act on the spiritual path is to learn to behave. So, but the point was is that he saw me like a book. He read me like a book, but it was beyond the astrology. He did go ahead and do some more proper things on my chart. He recommended certain roots to wear, like for Mars root, a certain root, a plant root, to wear on a necklace. And then he gave me Mars root and Rahu root, because he felt those are the two planets that were problematic in my chart.
That is the herb, like a herb.
Correct.
Root of a particular plant.
It could be tied to a thread on a necklace.
Okay.
And it was a pendant of him, actually. And then they tied these roots to the silver necklace so that it's kind of like the stones, gemstones are touching the skin. Well, these were roots that would touch the skin, and I wore it for several years. So the point was is he was so no bullshit, and he just kind of cut to the chase, and you could feel like a good guru is like a flawless mirror. And there were other things he said to me, but at the end of the day, it was probably one of the most powerful sessions I've ever had in my life. In terms of, again, it was like the level of Chakrapani, and just. So anyway, it was a great experience. Hari Harananda. Yeah, and he lived in Puri. He ran Sri Yukteswar's ashram after Sri Yukteswar passed. Later, he, it was in Puri, in Orissa.
So what was his age when you met him? Approximately.
He was born, just trying to think, so he was probably around 70 years old, in his 70s. Yeah. And I think he was really, truly an enlightened master. I really think he was enlightened. I can't tell for sure because I'm not enlightened, but I think he was on that really high level.
You're Leo Lagna, right?
What's that?
You're Leo Lagna, right?
Correct.
The ninth Lord Mars is in Leo.
Correct.
That's the reason I'm thinking, how come you got so many God figures, father figures? It's right on your head, their blessings.
And then it's with
Ninth Lord in the Lagna.
And it's with my Lagna Lord.
Oh, son.
So one of the things that David Frawley, who had a strong influence on me, often say is, I asked him, what are the keys to enlightenment in this lifetime? What are some of the keys in the chart that would indicate maybe more moksha? He said, when the Lord of the ninth house is conjoined with the ruler of the Lagna, ninth Lord and the first Lord together. When the ruler of the ninth Lord from the sun, from Surya Lagna, is associated.
Yes, we do. We have
when the ruler of the ninth house from the moon is associated with Chandra Lagna. These are symbols that can help in terms of, let's say, enlightenment, but also just spiritual blessings from gurus. And I have all three of those. So I have the trifecta. So the point is I'm not enlightened. I'm not even close. But I've had this great blessing to be around really, I think, true gurus. I've had this grace because I have Shubha Katara Yoga. I have Moon Jupiter on 12th house, Leo rising, and then Mercury in the second house. So it kind of protects me.
It's like an exalted Jupiter in the 12th house.
Correct.
And an exalted Mercury in the second house.
Correct.
That's giving you super
protection. So it really, as this one psychic said to me a long time ago in Kansas City, the first time I ever had a psychic reading, she said, you have two guardian angels. And I'm thinking, boy, I'm really special. And she says, yeah, you need two to keep you out of trouble.
Good one.
Actually, the second thing she said to me, and this was back in 1976, she said, someday you should go to Sedona. And I didn't go to Sedona until 1990. And then we moved there in 94, and we've been there for 24 years. So she was a great psychic, but she wasn't an astrologer. She was just a psychic.
Is she still alive?
Huh?
Is she still alive?
I don't know. I should find out. Her name's Pat Gillard. Gillard, Gillard. I should check and see if she's still alive, because Pat was probably 20 years older than me, so shoot, 15, 20 years, so she's probably close to 80. Yeah, I should check and see, because she was a very well-known astrologer, psychic in Kansas City, Missouri, where I grew up.
I'm going to look her up after this
week. Pat Gillard, we could see, because she was great. Red hair, really cool lady. And it was so funny, because my book, the Karmic Code that I'm working on, this trilogy, starts out with that story.
When is it going to come out?
I don't know. I need somebody to tie me up and lock me away in some cave somewhere.
You're going to just...
I've done a lot of them.
7 days disappear somewhere.
Yeah. So my wife and I actually, we've been talking about coming up here to Northern California and doing a week timeshare where she loves to write too, my wife. And just, I've written a lot actually. It's a trilogy, so there's like three different books. So, but anyway.
I think it's also important that people see experiences of astrologers. That's very important because see the younger generation, every younger generation, only 10% will remain who want the old things, who want the experiences of the old masters. Only 10%. I've been seeing this for the last 2-3 decades. That people don't want the old stuff.
It's like we have that conversation coming up to this restaurant, which is we were saying maybe 100 years old. Who knows? We're in the elevator and how it's antique. And we were saying how Sunil and I, we love the old things. We like the antiques, the things that have some character with them.
By the way, guys, we are sitting at a restaurant. It's a beautiful restaurant and it's right next to the sea. I don't know if you guys can see. Okay, but it's a 100-year-old restaurant and it's also beautiful. Even the people who are here are so beautiful and so wonderful. This gentleman has been so kind to us to bring us our wine, and I'm having a lovely time with Dennis Ji, Dr. Dennis. Who else impacted your Jyotish or spiritual growth?
I would have to say Dr. David Frawley had a strong impact on me. And David and I started organizing conferences back in, like I said, 91. We started working together. He's been a dear friend over the years. And I really found his writings real accessible to me because his moon is in Shravana, in Capricorn, opposite my moon in Aslesha. So the moons are glancing, drishti between each other. Our moons are connected. And I always found David's writings really very, moon in Capricorn, very logical, rational, grounded, easy for me to follow, So he had a strong impact on me, very much over the years.
He's such a graceful guy,
It's brilliant. And he's very humble, too.
I met him twice.
Thank you so much.
By the way, my Jupiter is in Shravana.
Oh, lovely. Okay. Yeah, because my Jupiter's in Aslesha, so our Jupiters are opposite each other, so they're drishti. And I think we found out your moon and my Mars are conjoined the same degree. Leo. Yeah.
So that's great. That's great. Anything special you've seen about Dr. David Frawley? Of course, he's a great man, but something that people do not know about.
Well, the thing is that he's like the walking, the walking Vedas. He's carrying the knowledge of Ayurveda, yoga, mantra, prayer, and of course Jyotish, and then political and historical and archaeology. So to me, he's one of the most brilliant minds, of my lifetime. He's definitely one of the top 4 people I've ever met in terms of just Vedic knowledge, Vedic wisdom, head and shoulders above, most. And he's involved politically, of course, as you know, in India, helping to support Mr. Modi and other people that I think are trying. Again, I'm not as politically astute as what's going on in India. You would know much better than I, of course. But my understanding is they're trying, like the Arya Samaj is trying to protect the ancient knowledge and the ancient wisdom so that it doesn't just get westernized so much that it loses its authenticity. Yeah. So I'm just trying to think. He's taught me so much. Probably more interfacing medical astrology and Ayurveda, bringing that into my work. But his book, Astrology of the Seers, is to me one of the cornerstone books.
Absolutely.
That book is essential. Probably the other person that had a strong influence on me was Hart Defoe. Hart was probably one of the most amazing teachers that I've ever had. And his book, Light on Life and Light on Relationships, to me are like classics too. They're another cornerstone kind of in my library.
His guru passed away a year or two back. Mantriji. Did you ever meet Mantriji?
I talked to him on the phone once. It was really sweet. Yeah, I didn't ever get to meet him, but I invited him to come. He called me actually.
Oh, really?
He goes, I've heard you doing these conferences. This was a long time ago, probably 20 years ago. He said, I'd like to come to one of the conferences sometimes. I said, I would love to have you come. And so we had that conversation. And then I don't know what happened. Maybe, again, I don't think he passed away right then, but it just never happened, and I regret that because I do have friends like Dr. Robert Svoboda who studied with him, and also a woman named Andrea Oliveira who lives in Toronto, who's written a book on him, which I'm actually just going to get a copy of.
Really?
She just wrote it like this last year about her experiences with him because she'd been with him for over 20 years.
Her experiences with Mantriji. I'm going to buy that book.
I know.
Just let me know the name of the publisher. I'm going to buy it.
I actually just got the text from her like a day or so ago because I wanted to get a copy of it from her because it was kind of like what we were talking about with Chakrapani.
Why don't you introduce me to her? I would love to interview her.
Yeah, she's
for
brilliant.
Mantriji, because you know what? I don't know if it's true or not.
Yeah.
I was told, like I have friends who've been with Hardly for 15 years, 20
Right.
years,
Right.
all that. And so they know all about Mantriji.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I was told, and I don't know if it's true or not, he just died, I think, a year or two back.
Yeah, a few years ago.
I was told that he has reached such a level that he doesn't need any longer to see charts. That was his level he had reached. I was told that. It's just so unfortunate I've still never been able to meet Hardly before. He's so inaccessible.
Yeah.
Although we did interview Robert Svoboda, we interviewed him, but
My understanding is Hart's back in Toronto now.
oh, he's back.
He's back in Toronto.
Okay.
But he's kind of a recluse, a little bit more hermit, So his students have taken over his teachings, and of course Robert Svoboda still teaches and things. But
Robert doesn't teach Jyotish, does he?
no, it's mostly Ayurveda and philosophy and things like that. So
But Stephen is
Heiberger,
Stephen Heiberger.
Penny Farrell,
Penny Farrell.
they're two of his
Yeah.
best
I've been
students.
wanting to interview them, Penny and me, since a year. The time zone's not matching, the date's not matching. I met her in June also. Such a lovely person.
Yeah, she's brilliant.
And a very systematic teacher, I hear. She's absolutely.
She's probably probably Hart's best student. I would say her or Stephen Heiberger, my understanding. Stephen, they both have lectured at our conferences and things.
Oh, really?
Yeah, lovely. And Penny just lectured a couple of years ago, 2 years ago at our conferences. So,
You know something? In 2000,
I also grabbed this as well.
I was with ZTV. ZTV is like a very big international TV channel, television channel from India. Okay. They got, I think, 20-30 channels, television channels.
Oh, spaghetti.
So I was working for them as a producer, television producer, for a channel they were about to launch, which was on spirituality, astrology, yoga, all of it. At that time, I had approached K.N. Rao. Rao Sahab I had approached. Fondly I call him Babu Chacha, means like elder, this thing. So, at that time, he had asked me to contact Penny Farrow and not who I can call Mosby, one more guy, I'm forgetting. So I had contacted Mark Boney and Penny Farrow to be present in the panel of astrologers. And there was a UK astrologer whom I had contacted. It was supposed to be a great show on world predictions, etc. and all that.
Prash Trivedi?
No. UK, there was a Margaret lady. She used to be very popular in India, but she's from UK. She was extremely popular. At that time, I heard of Penny Farrow and Mark Boney. Somehow, still our connection. We were connected. Penny and me were connected by email, but somehow it's not happened. I'm going to get her one of these days.
She's brilliant. She's brilliant, and she's real stickler for his teachings. And how he taught. So she's really carrying that lineage of Hart and Mantriji. My understanding, she never met Mantriji. I don't think she. I don't know. Maybe she did. I can't say that for a fact. But this Andrea Oliveira, she's amazing. She's an Ayurvedic practitioner.
She's not a Jyotishi?
she knows a lot, but no, she doesn't practice in terms of seeing clients, I don't think, for astrology so much. But she just was like Montague's right-hand person, right at his side, like his assistant. And she would tell me these funny stories about him, and of course some of the stuff's in the book.
Yeah.
But he just loved humor, she said, which is really sweet. She said he would get all of his students to learn to tell a joke, and then they'd have to tell the joke in front of the whole group.
Oh my God.
And even, Ken Rao was so much, he loved how people would crack jokes. He really loves humor, So all the great ones to me, they usually have a good sense of humor.
Yes. Well, what about Ken Rao? I mean, you never told us about your experiences with him.
In 93, 94, we had him as our keynote speaker, who Dr. Raman recommended, because he was the vice president of ICAS at that time, in the Indian Council of Astrological Sciences. And Ken Rao was amazing. And like I said, he really inspired us to create the American Council of Vedic Astrology back in 95 is when we actually initiated that fully. But 94, 95. But Ken Rao was great. I mean, a couple of things that he shared with us, which I thought was really beautiful, was one with Nietzsche planets, debilitated planets.
Okay, please tell us.
He would say the beauty of debilitated planet, even if it's not Nietzsche Banga, even if it's not released from its debility, is the fact that a debilitated planet taught humility, it taught compassion, it taught love, and it taught not to be arrogant, not to be prideful. Because his whole point was, just because a planet's exalted or whatever, powerful, doesn't mean powerfully good. I mean, look at Hitler's chart. It's like a powerhouse chart, but powerfully good is another question. So you look at a lot of great saints' charts, he would say, and quite often he would say they would have a debilitated or very challenged Venus in their chart, because they couldn't find love and happiness from the material world. So it pushed them to go deep to find it within themselves. So he teach these beautiful things. And of course, as you know, I mean, he had all the techniques and everything. And I liked how the fact that his school was always trying to, get case studies, prove these things, prove these, through some kind of, say, research methods. And so he was very inspirational.
When he was here in USA, did you hear any of his predictions that he made to people, or the people, or the audience gave you a feedback? Some brilliant predictions of Rasa.
One of the predictions he made was that he said when we were trying to form this organization, he knew James Kelleher's chart, he knew David Frawley's chart, he knew another gentleman, Stephen Kwong, who was involved with us, and my chart, of course. And he pointed to me, and he goes, "This man will be the one that runs this organization."
Oh, really?
Probably my son in Leo, my Leo planets. This guy's not going to be happy working for other people. No, he didn't say that, but that way it's true. I don't do well working for others. So, but that was kind of a funny prediction he made. But he told me too, he said something, you probably know this, I'm trying to remember what it is. It's the 64th
Navamsha.
is it the Amsha? It's in the Drekana chart. There's a 64th section or something like that. Anyway, I happen to have, it's kind of a vulnerable area. I have Moon Jupiter there in Pisces, in Pisces. It's like an 8th house placement or something. I'm trying to remember the name of it. But anyway, so he told me that there would come a time in my life where I would go through a real breakdown emotionally, which is true, it occurred. But he said, because they were in the sign of Pisces, you'll make it through this. And this was like 15 years before this event happened. So there's things like that where he would just say these things, and he was really fascinated with people from the West. He was very fascinated. And I remember one of the other just cute things. It wasn't astrology, but he said, he says, "Dennis," he called me Mr. Dennis. That was how he called me, Mr. Dennis. He said, "I want to meet the Red Indians."
So do I.
He wanted to meet the Native American Indians. He would call them the Red Indians. He wasn't trying to be racist or anything. He was just, it was this sweet guy. He said, "I want to meet these people." So he was sweet. But there were, again, he did so many techniques and was teaching us all these different dasha systems and, Agni Dasha, different things, and just all these things, these techniques he was teaching us. But he was beautiful, and he was the one also. I think I asked him, and he really was strong about this, that whatever dasha and bhukti you're born into, because I felt strongly from a psychological level how strong that impact would be the first few years, whatever dasha bhukti you're born into. That would imprint on the person very strongly.
I wrote an article on it 9 or 10 years back. I forget the title of the article. I had named it differently. I learned it from a parampara guy in Rishikesh. The dasha and bhukti one is born into, your whole life pattern will be like that. Anyway, such a beautiful thing. Let us continue this. I know my battery is going to die down.
Okay.
We're going to continue this session.
So I'm glad
Unfortunately, you're going today.
I'm glad I got to meet your guru, even though it was brief. C.S. Patel
C.S. Patel
came over and taught. Sweet. So
very old-fashioned.
yeah, I'm glad we got to meet. And to be continued. Hopefully, you'll come to our conference next year.
Yes.
In Sedona. And for those that are interested, our website is sedonavedicastrology.com.
Okay.
We have a conference coming up November 30th to December 3rd, so in 3 weeks, in case anybody wants to jump on the train. We're pretty much sold out. We have a room, I think, for like 20 more students, usually around 200 people.
Okay.
And it's at a beautiful resort in Sedona. And Sedona is a magical, mystical place, one of the most powerful spiritual places.
Vortex point, right? It's a vortex point.
Yeah, it's where the Native American Indians, they actually didn't never live in Sedona. They lived on the outskirts. And this is where they would come to do their ceremonies, because it was like their temple. And so they would come and do their vision class and their ceremonies and their spiritual kinds of things, because they didn't want it to become too domesticated. So they lived on the outskirts, and they came. I'll finish with this beautiful story. Karunamai, who's a fairly famous, guru from India, she said that the ancient name for Sedona was Siddhadona, the land of the rishis. She said that the native East Indians came down and moved into, through the Alaskan Straits into Sedona. And then she said the beautiful thing about Sedona is that the red rocks are Shakti and the white rocks are Shiva. And so Sedona is the marriage of Shiva Shakti energy. And so there's a very strong tantric energy, the power of the uniting of the alchemical marriage between Shiva and Shakti. So I've been all over the world, and it's definitely one of the top places I've ever been in this lifetime. Of course, the Bay Area, San Francisco is not too shabby. So I'm glad we got to meet here, though.
Same here. It's connecting after so long. We've never met in person, but we've known this thing. Guys, this is going to continue, and I am going to try my level best to get some more secret techniques out from Venergy. And do you still consult, or?
I do. I probably see about 10 clients a week, and then I organize the conferences, and then I got to finish that trilogy.
so less consultations for him, sorry, but he's got to finish his experiences. But most important for me is those lovely moments that he spent with the legends of astrology, from B.V. Raman to Santanam or there's one guy we missed out today. Right. Which, when me and Dennis were walking from our hotel here to the sea, was one astrologer from Hong Kong, who Dennis said was the most fantastic predictor that Dennis ever found. My battery is dying down, but you guys have to wait till I reach back Bombay, which is on the 15th, which is a couple of days from now. And you got to tell me more about him.
Okay, remind me. Chinese astrologer from Hong Kong.
From Hong Kong. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Dennis. Dennis G, thank you so much from our audience. And if you are in US, I would recommend you to go to Dennis' conference. He holds a very nice and beautiful conference. And apart from that, pray that his book comes out really, really fast. Like B.V. Raman's My Experiences in Astrology, same your book should be a super
It'll be called the Karmic Code.
karmic code. Okay. 3 months from now, it's going to come out in February. All right, guys. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.